Okay, I want to introduce now. Should I call you Xiaolu Guo or Guo Xiaolu?
Xiaolu is fine.
Xiaolu.
Yeah.
Xiaolu Guo, who some of you may have read her books, some of you maybe have seen her films already. I am a big fan, and so I'm very proud to introduce her. And she's been travelling from Germany. Not only that, she's been touring her new film, UFO in Her Eyes, for the past few weeks in Germany, and before that in America. So she's completely exhausted and not her usual lively self, she says.
We're just going to have 10 minutes talk, so you can be free after. So me too.
So we're going to chat for a little bit first about this film, and then we'll watch the film. Oh no, then we'll have tea, and then we'll watch the film. And then, well, I would also like to say that I didn't introduce.
It's okay. Find the pause. Apologies.
Great, big movie.
Sorry.
Can see.
I didn't introduce Rita, who is my production assistant on this project, and she's going to be selling Xiaolu's books afterwards, which we...
Thank you, I don't know that, sorry.
And we're able to offer them at a discount price of £5 each for the $7.99 price and £10 for the $12.99 price. So that's quite a healthy discount, I think. So we'll do that at the end of the day. Okay. So we need to talk. Well, we'll talk a little bit about your background in terms of coming to this country and working in this country, which started by writing fiction, didn't it?
Yeah. Is this working?
Yeah. No. this is working for the purposes of the recording, but not for the room. So
the setting.
Have to project.
I just really, my life is like bohemia, you know. I was never academic, and I was always on the road on my own. It's like a band, but without band members, so that's lonely diva.
You did study film in
Yeah, I went to Beijing when I was 20 from South, and I was supposed to become a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And as any lazy film student in a film school for 10 years, I never made one film. And I hated film so much just because I hated filmmaking so much, not the film. It's just because of the technical production side. And it comes back to the beginning of my teenage life or childhood. I'm a village person, really like a village, very rebelling, bad kid. You know, I hated all the traditional way of life for some reason, I don't know why. And in a village, because 1890s, if you come from China, 1890s in the south, you will be one of the Menlong Shi. You were one of the obscure poetic school little sour poet,
right,
which I belong to. And so we come from end of 80s, early 90s. Everybody really writes some kind of poetic poetry without narrative, without propaganda, without... So, because most of Chinese here, so propaganda, this word is weird, because we don't really have this word. We have a better word, 宣传, okay. It's more neutral word. But basically, the Menlong Shi is against political writing. It's against 寻根文学, against 伤痕文学. So it's kind of first individualistic writing about me, spring.
Subjective.
Yeah, about me towards spring or summer or winter or snow or tree. Not about a Bolshevik or whatever communist.
So that's the kind of writing that was very looked down upon during the...
I don't know if it's looked down, it was always very been...
marginalized.
Completely. Yeah. And because that's after Cultural Revolution. Although I'm still not very old, but I belong to older age because I don't trust the young generation at all. When I see young generation, I feel I'm completely out of the fashion in the good way, actually.
Because you feel that they're part of this new consumer generation in China?
I wouldn't be so simplistic because after 10 minutes you will see this film Shi Chinese, which I made 4 years ago, and it's really about generation who refuse to define its own voice.
The character of the girl in this film is the kind of girl that you're talking about that you were.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
She's completely symbolic. So let me just be stupid intellectual a bit, and then we can be free. Sorry. Okay. Identity, this word in China is national. is national concept. It's 民族身份. So identity 身份 in China is very political concept. But identity in the West or in Western Europe or in France is existential concept. Is a 存在主义的一个身份感. Existential concept of identity is about self. The self, how your naked self, which is not housewife or some bureaucratic husband or communist or capitalist, is a naked self, which naked being in the world. And I try to write about this kind of self without identity, and let alone national identity. Because in China, if I have identity, I'm a peasant, I'm a worker. This is superimposed identity in China. Before you were born, you wear this identity as a clothes, as a jacket. And so I wanted to create this character, Li Mei, refused to wear those identities. So in China, if you're a peasant girl, okay, get married, she refused.
Yeah. So she is the kind of girl.
She is Western concept of the self without identity, or refuse to have identity.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I want to talk about this, because it seems this is quite important to enter the film. I think it's stupid to analyze before you have any free feeling, But as an author, we're always very forceful. I mean, as a filmmaker, you always try to be forceful to give the message beyond the narrative. Plus, I'm not very into narrative at all. I mean, story narrative, I'm not into it. So for me, the character is really quite symbolic, and it's a generation doesn't exist, but generation really from very romantic time to non-nihilistic time. But I wouldn't say her character is completely commercial character or completely, I was born in 70s, and 70 is the end of the romantic ideological idea. But I'm still very ideological, and I think most of Chinese cannot live without ideology, and which is, I think it's a problem, is we were never free. I mean, it's not like we're naive, we know there's no freedom, but ideological is huge prison. I mean, because in Britain you have George Orwell. We don't have it. So we don't know who is George Orwell. So we don't have that process. And we think ideological is great. And I think this girl just doesn't give a damn of ideology.
No, she doesn't, does she?
And she does have a tragic journey, because she said no. She said fuck all.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, maybe, to read, because in Britain, very different reaction towards this film, and in France, opposite reaction to the film. For me, it's as a political study.
How are they different, the reactions here and in France?
I will see how you react, because I think it reflects the country's personality. In France, the question more like, how could such a naked, nihilistic character? They really ask about existentialism in China, whether we have it or not, or whether we have self. We don't have self. My identity is a peasant, a village girl who become intellectual, and then I marry. Nothing is to do with self, So that's in France, that's a reaction, and I think in Britain it's more about moralistic
I can
look
see
about the woman. And in fact, I don't even know this woman. I mean, for me, is 人质. It's kind of a example, human example
of
a youth,
a girl,
of a youth, but manifested by the female.
Yeah, I think when I watch it, from a say, I was going to say Western, but English as opposed to French, then maybe I recognise her as a teenager, an alienated teenager of a type that we're familiar with here. Like you say, from a village or a small town who wants to escape or who has dreams, but is, the generation gap is there, which is not something that we think exists with Chinese youth, or certainly didn't exist with Chinese youth up until recently.
It's just for Chinese youth to be so naked is very, very tough, because we wear so-called 5,000 years old history. When you wear that jacket, you can't breathe.
No.
So in American, you don't wear any jacket. Okay, say 200 years of jacket. You can be anything. You can be Elvis Presley. But in Chinese, when you wear that jacket, you cannot. You have to study Confucius from beginning, and that's way.
Can I just, before we stop for tea, ask you about the title? Because you say or I've read in interviews with you that it comes from Godard's La Chinoise.
It's a joke from Godard.
How does it relate to that film?
Because when I remember I watched Xiaolu Guo and La Chinoise when I was first year in the film school in Beijing. I remember we were laughing because the beautiful, Godard girlfriend, Parisian girl, wear the Chinese revolution hat, say La Chine, yeah, revolution, and then you start to laugh.
And it's all aesthetic and
it's like gun and all these games, whatever, chocolate, tomato, and then blood, And when your father was in prison for Cultural Revolution, when you watch Godard film like that, you think, how naive is that? But I still love, I always love Godard because also there's such a profound naivety insulting the seriousness of your so-called identity. And I like that kind of insulting. And I said, okay, a French bourgeois Parisian group longing for the bleeding Chinese Cultural Revolution. I do the opposite. I make a Chinese version La Chinoise called A Chinese Peasant, Young Female, Longing for the Capitalism Freedom.
Yeah.
All the way, but reverse journey completely. So that was beginning. The script was, of course, much more, narrative-driven, much more political. But in the end, because I was never into narrative, in editing, I take out all the story part, just left all this, essay-like, just flowy part, So in the end, you nothing really linked to the Godard La Chinoise, and nothing political. It's really kind of
a relationship.
Yeah, sensual. Very sensual, feminine, those kind of, poetic looking of reality.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the background.
Yeah, okay. So and it's a beautiful film, I think, to look at. Visually, it's beautiful.
But maybe not in this light. So
no, it will be fine. No, it will be fine. We're going to make it dark.